Now, I admire Dodge for taking a huge risk by trying to sell an EV to people who do not want an EV at all. We're gonna have a look at those numbers, what the percentages is from Charger and Challenger owners, and what they say. Do they even consider having an EV compared to the national average of possibly getting an EV as a next car? And I think they might have some problems trying to sell the Charger EV, which was kind of expected, but the good news here is that it's not only an EV. They are going to drop it with the Hurricane Inline 6 a little bit later. I do think a lot of people are actually just waiting for the internal combustion engine version to come out. So let's have a look at this article. We got two articles to look at, then we're going to have a look at the design of this. I want to quickly just go over the design. I want to think about the overall design of the new Charger EV. So this article from CarScoop says Dodge tries to woo Charger Daytona EV lessees with extra 1,000 loyalty discount on top of the 7,500 federal EV tax credit. Pricing starts at $61,590 for the base RT models and climbs up to $75,185 for the Scat Pack. It's kind of weird to have the name Scat Pack in an EV, not having that rumble. The thing is, though, when you listen to this, it really sounds like an internal combustion engine. They try to sort of mimic the sound that muscle car owners are used to, and honestly, I just don't think that is ever going to work, because everybody knows it's fake. It's not the mechanical pieces or the exhaust, the exhaust going through the pipes making the noise. It's something artificial. It just doesn't have the same feel to it. So are Dodge and in particular Challenge diehards actually clamoring to own the new Charger Daytona EV, or are they holding out for next year's ICE version with the inline 6 turbo? Whether Dodge jumped the gun here by venturing into the world of electric muscle cars too soon, or if they will reap the benefits of being the first, remains to be seen. They might, they might just find a new segment, a completely new segment of buyers that are interested in this, that love the design of a muscle car, but they don't. I don't know. Maybe that, when I say it out loud, it sounds like a very hard sell, because if you like the design of muscle cars, you definitely like big V8s as well. So Dodge has yet to release the full leasing terms for the Charger Daytona, nor has it disclosed any financial deals, leaving interest shoppers to play the waiting game for those specific for those specifics. So the entry-level 24 Charger Daytona RT starts at $61,590 in the US. This model comes with 496 horsepower and 404 pound-feet of torque. It sounds okay. I mean, it's not crazy numbers. And it also includes direct connection stage 1 upgrade from the factory. Charger Daytona Scat Pack, however, starts at $75,185. This comes with a direct connection stage 2 upgrade as standard, resulting in an impressive 670 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque. This allows it to hit 60 in about 3.3 seconds. So the numbers are not bad here. Quarter mile, 11.5 seconds. And then we have this article from Inside EVs. And this is where you get interesting here. This is where you can really see the challenge that Dodge has in front of them. I'm trying to get Charger, classic V8 Charger and Challenger buyers to buy into an EV. It's going to be a very, very hard battle for Dodge. So Dodge dilemma, how to sell an EV to buyers who don't want them. How do you do that? The hard part will be figuring out how exactly to sell electric cars to customers who largely want nothing to do with them, and conversely, how to sell a brand steeped in gasoline to EV buyers. So looking at some data here from Strategic Vision shows that current Charger and Challenger owners are substantially more likely to reject EVs than the average car buyer. Its latest survey in some 350,000 car owners suggests that 16% of US drivers intend for the next car to be electric. Only 16%, and that is the average, national average. However, look at the numbers here for Challenger owners. It's just 5%, and among Charger owners, it goes down to 4%. So that is the big challenge that Dodge has here, have in front of them. A whopping 78% of Charger owners and 64% of Challenger owners say they are flat out not interested in buying an electric car, and that is why I think a lot of these people, if they want if they want the new Charger, they are going to wait for the inline six to come out and just buy the internal combustion engine version. It's pretty interesting here what the CEO Tim Kuniskis says that they faced when the challenges that they faced when they were developing this car. Right now, he says, we're under attack. Your legacy is under attack. He goes on to blame regulators for the fact that Dodge even has to sell an EV in the first place. So they really did not want to make this car. They wanted to make a Hemi EV, but they couldn't. They weren't allowed to do that. The point was that they told us that we couldn't sell Hemis, but they never told us that we had to be boring and slow. So they tried to sort of find a gray area here and use those gray areas against the regulators to build a muscle car, a Dodge muscle car. That seems like a more fun EV than what we used to see on the market today. And I do think in that aspect, Dodge has actually done a pretty good job, because this does not look like an EV. It looks like an internal combustion engine, and it also is an internal combustion engine version of this car. So electric cars are supposed to be green, says Kuniskis, and politically correct. So this thing must be super efficient and environmentally friendly, right? He asks. I don't know, he says. Maybe. But that was never the point. So they didn't set out to build an EV that was, completely green and environmentally friendly. They just wanted to build an EV that was as close to an internal combustion muscle car as possible. And I do think they did a pretty good job with what they had. I mean, you have these regulators telling you what you can and can't do. And if you're a brand like Dodge, which has this super long and solid legacy of hardcore muscle cars, you need to figure out what you need to do and how you're going to solve this problem. I do wish, though, that they would put the V8 in this and not just the Hurricane inline 6. So let's have a look at this design here. The reason why I think this is a cool design, because they didn't set out to make it efficient. They didn't set out to make it super aerodynamic and make it a soap bar with the design. They set out to create as close to a muscle car as possible, with the regulators watching every single move that they were doing with this design. So here we have the new Charger, and the thing is, you can't really tell the EV apart from the internal combustion version. I do think that is a good idea. We have some very nice boxy lines here. I do think this could have been a little boxier and more muscle car-y than this. I do like that we have this. The cats are going crazy here. I do like that we have this intake in the front end that then swoops up and shoots out. We have sort of like a Ferrari Pista design here, with the front end of the entire car being sort of an internal wing to add some downforce in the front end. You see the boxiness here with all these vertical and horizontal lines, and this is exactly the design language that we want to have in a muscle car like this. Again, I do think it could have been a little bit more boxy than this, specifically looking at it from a side view, but having this light bar here looks pretty cool. We have the headlights integrated in this dark black area in the front end, creating this typical Challenger grille that we're used to seeing, a big long rectangle with the headlights sitting at the very outside areas of that graphic feature. Now, looking at the side view here, this is where it gets a little tricky for me, because personally, I did make a quick change to this when this first came out to move the A-pillar backwards. I want to have the A-pillar start something like this, and then have this be more boxy and slope down a little faster or sooner than what we have here. This looks almost like a hatchback design, and I want this C-pillar to end or meet the rest of the body further this way to create more of a trunk design in the back like we used to have in the legendary Challenger that they discontinued last year. Then we have these graphic features down here going into the side. I do like that we have a continuous line here. You can see that it goes in through the front axle, down in the bottom here, it comes back, and then up in the rear end as well. We have almost emotional lines here in the side view, with these two shoulder lines being cut in this area, and another sharp line right in the middle that goes from the front again through the entire car into the rear end as well. I also want to have this angle. You see how this is angled outwards? I want the end point here to be angled inwards to create more of a nice end point for the rear end, and then maybe the bumper even stick out a little bit more than this. The wheels, these wheels, definitely we need to switch those out. These just have to go immediately. They don't do this car any favors whatsoever, so we need to switch those out and maybe even lower the car a little bit, because this gap is way too big for me. Maybe lower it by an inch or so and put some 19s, beautiful 19s on there. That would help this design a lot. Now, looking at the rear end, this is by far my favorite view for this car, even though I do think, again, we have this angled being angled outwards. I want to have this be angled inwards, the rear end, to have, again, more of a solid rear end and end point for this. But I do like that we have the same rectangle here coming back like we had in the front end. And this also creates a very muscle car design when you have static features, static graphics like this, just a simple rectangle with a light bar going around and framing the entire rectangle. I also like that they have a proper bumper in the lower section with this black piece. And this creates it carves out some of this volume that we have in the rear and making it look a little sporty. If this were to be body color down here, it would probably look a little too high or too heavy in the rear end. So I'm glad that they decided to just black this out. Then you have Daytona spelled out in the middle here, and a couple of hopefully functional air vents or outlets right here. Again, very static and horizontal lines going across this entire body. Again, could have been a little bit more static in my opinion, since we want to have this boxy muscle car design in this new car as well. It looks a bit too organic for me, which normally I'm not a fan of. I'm not opposed of that at all when it comes to car design, but when it comes to muscle cars specifically, it should only be, basically, if you have a coupe like this, 3 boxes. You want to have 1 box for the front right here, very static. 1 box that starts a little further back than this for the greenhouse, stopping a little sooner than this as well, and then 1/3 box in the rear end. And that is how you design a muscle car, in my opinion. Now, looking at the interior, pretty cool looking interior. I dig this interior. It looks a lot better, or a lot more modern for sure, than the old Challenger, which was around since 2007. They updated it a little bit in, I do believe, 2014 or 2015 or something like that. But the interior still looked very dated. This looks so much better, even though we don't really have a housing for the gauge cluster here. But this wraparound going all across the interior here into the passenger side as well is pretty cool. The steering wheel looks beautiful as well. The integration of the gauge infotainment screen on the side looks decent. It looks like we have some physical knobs, or buttons at least, down here for the climate control settings, which is always appreciated. And the overall integration of the gauge cluster looks decent as well. It doesn't stick up too much. We also have some radiuses in the corners here, in addition to a proper center console that houses the gear selector here. This looks to be maybe, I'm not sure if this is the EV or the internal combustion version. They look the same. As I said, it's very hard to differentiate the two. And some nice styling here on the armrest as well, with this beautiful chamfer going on here. Probably some wireless charging going on here, cup holders. And this looks to be like a red cloth seat, which I am a huge fan of. I want to see more cars bring back cloth seats because I like the feeling of them. Probably more so than leather seats. I don't know why. It just feels more cozy, more warm, more welcoming, more homey. So overall, I think, as I said, Dodge has a huge challenge in front of them now to try to sell this Charger Daytona EV, and I really hope they do. I think, as I said, I don't think current Charger and Challenger buyers are going to buy this. I think they need to find a completely new segment of buyers to market this car to, and the Charger and Challenger owners are just going to wait around for the inline 6 to come out and then buy that version. But overall, it's exciting to see EVs in this type of design, where you have a completely different design from just a blob or a soap bar that we're used to seeing from other EVs. So well done, Dodge, and I wish them all the best with this project.